Hello, this is Mike, and welcome back to the Nonprofit Spotlight. So glad that you're here with us again. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Noel and Lois from the Falls Church Community Service Council. Noel, Lois, welcome. Could you take a moment and introduce yourselves and the roles you have there?
Yes, thank you. Well, we're very happy to be here today. So thank you for inviting us to be on your podcast. My name is Noel Durman, and I'm the Executive Director at Falls Church Community Service Council. I started in this position in July of 23, and our mission at FCS is to provide emergency assistance to our neighbors in need in Falls Church. And we do that through two ways, primarily financial assistance for rent and utilities and food assistance. And with me today is Lois Lightcrim, and she runs our food pantry.
Yeah, I'm Lois. I've actually worked with FCS. I took a break of a couple of years, but since 2009, when I was the co-administrative assistant with Linda Rice Johnston. And before that, I even volunteered as a food delivery person. So after a couple of years, I came back in the fall of 2022, and I've been coordinating the food pantry since then. So.
That's great. Well, welcome. So glad you can be part of the conversation today. Can you tell us a little bit about how the Falls Church Community Service Council came into existence and where specifically you are focusing your energy and efforts?
Sure. So we have been in existence for over 50 years. FCS was actually started by one of the members of your faith community, Holy Trinity, and the pastor there who saw the need for a coalition of faith communities and community groups to come together to support neighbors in need, to fill those gaps in the social safety net. So it started with, similar to what we do today, food assistance, rental assistance, and then they had some transportation. And over the years, it evolved. In the 70s, they added Meals on Wheels, the Seven Corners Children's Center, and they had a clothing closet, and a furniture program. Homestretch was part of FCS in the beginning. So it evolved from a idea of a passionate community member and how we could all come together to connect to help those in need. And then it grew, and those organizations spun off from FCS. Homestretch in particular has a huge reach now. But FCS has always kept chugging along with our main mission of food and emergency financial assistance. We operated continuously through the COVID pandemic, and that changed a lot of the community landscape and need, as you know. So now we focus. We don't do furniture anymore. We stopped that last year, and formally. So we provide grocery deliveries, which is a little bit different than some of the local food pantries. We do not have people come to our food pantry. We have volunteers who will pack and deliver groceries. And that is helpful in that it can reduce the barriers to food access. Some people don't have transportation. They need to work during the day. They're caring for a child or an elderly relative. They're sick. So by delivering the groceries, we can get it to them without a lot of trouble on their part. And then the other piece we do is financial rent and utility assistance. And then we also, on a case-by-case basis, will do medical assistance, dental assistance, clothing, but food and rent and utilities are our main focus areas.
Very good. Lois, did you want to add to that?
There was a couple other organizations that started with FCS were the Bailey's Shelter and the Falls Church Winter Shelter. We did have, for quite a while, we did have a successful furniture program, but it was very hard to get volunteers and someone to run it. So
yeah,
that's why we don't have that anymore. I started managing the food pantry. That the roles changed of the three of us who work for FCS due to the pandemic because no one was in the office, and everything was remote. And there was someone who was manning the pantry at that time and just getting out as much food as possible to people. She would actually pack up things and then people just come and take it and deliver. When we started in 2009, that was when FCS first had a physical office, which is housed at Knox. The food pantry's been housed there since 1971. Sometimes there's a little confusion. Everyone calls it the Knox food pantry, but it's not. It's the FCS food pantry. It's just always been housed at Knox. It takes a lot to keep it stocked because we have, on a slow week, we probably have 10 to 12 food deliveries, and we encourage everyone to be generous. We try to pack at least a week's worth of groceries, and depending on the size of the household, that can be four bags, or it could be 8 or 10, if there's 7 people. We're really grateful to the people who deliver food, because that, it's a lot to come in and pack up the groceries and haul them.
Absolutely. So where does the food come from that you're able to distribute to the local community? Because you're right about being kind of like that last mile delivery is super important, especially if people have accessibility issues, or even like in our current situation when there was a snowstorm, they can't get out of their house.
Right.
So where does your food come from, and then who puts that together to get it ready for distribution?
So the food, we get a lot of donations of non-perishables, a lot of canned goods and dry goods. And then we have a large grant through Fairfax County to buy anything else that's needed. And we also stock some non-food items, like paper goods and personal hygiene, detergent, because people who have food stamps can only buy food. They can't buy non-food items. So we get really generous donations through our partner churches, and the Scouting for Food effort in November is huge because they bring several tons of food, and then that lasts for a while.
Yeah, and as Lois mentioned, we do get grant funding for food, but it does not cover the need that we have.
Yeah.
So the FCS, the coalition of Falls Church Community Service Council, our 20 faith community partners, they are really key to keeping that pantry stocked. We have faith communities that do pretty regular food drives for us, and that is a really effective supplement, in addition to bigger events like Scouting for Food and Stuff the Bus. We rely on our community partners to help us with that food pantry, especially in the last couple of years. The demand for food assistance, it just continues to rise. The region is supposedly recovering and recovered from COVID economically, but you do not see that in the people we serve. Food prices, as everyone knows, are extremely high. SNAP benefits have been taken back to pre-COVID levels. Wages are not rising in relation to the food costs, so people really need help. Last year or 23 to 24, we had an over 20% increase in food requests. We were very grateful to get our food funding from Fairfax County for 25 and 26, but they did lower the amount they gave us for food, and they increased the amount they gave us for rent, which is wonderful. But we do have a gap for food funding. So it is something we're constantly working on to fulfill that pantry and keep it stocked with good food for people, non-perishables, but also fresh food. We have bread, milk, eggs, vegetables, meat. And then we also, as funding allows, like to provide a gift card with each delivery so that people can buy things that they need that we do not have. We like to have the pantry be responsive to people's dietary, cultural needs, but we can't have everything. So we like to include a gift card as well.
That's great. That's such an abundance that you're able to provide when you have the resources to do it. So you had mentioned some of the variables that are impacting individuals that creates an environment of food insecurity. Could you say a little bit more about if there's other variables or other elements to either our local area or what's happening that you see kind of regionally that's impacting food insecurity?
Absolutely. I was for a funding proposal actually researching this, and the Capital Area Food Bank, they put out a hunger report each year, and this year's hunger report, or should I say 2024's, again reflected the knowledge or the data that's showing that while the economic situation is improving, people are really hurting because of food prices, inflation, slow rising in wages. And that makes it hard to make ends meet. And it makes it especially hard to make ends meet in an area like Northern Virginia, which is very expensive to live in. The population, lower income neighbors are what they call rent burdened, which is when more than a third of your income goes towards rent. And when you have to pay rent, you have to make sacrifices in other areas. And that can be food, that can be medical, that can be, it's a constant struggle and a juggling act to try to make the ends meet when your wages cannot cover your expenses. And it's just really hard to make that gap in this area.
Yeah, cost of living here in our area seems to be a continuous theme of what impacts people's daily budgets or household budgets, and has a inversely negative impact on the other elements of their household that they're trying to continue.
Just the economic factors, right? And then, everyone we serve has their own individual situations. So a lot of, we can read what's coming in from the social workers, and you can see a little bit of people's situations. And many of the people we are serving have multiple jobs. They're working really hard. They're teachers, they're bus drivers, they're Lyft drivers. They have jobs. They are making an income, but it cannot cover their expenses. Other people have medical issues, a health crisis or a fall. And when you are on living on such an edge with income and expenses, one illness, one sick kid that you have to miss a week of work for can really impact the ability to feed and house your family. So
maybe that might be a good opportunity here to transition from the food related things that you all provide to the rent assistance that you mentioned. So how does that program work, and about how many clients would you say do you have currently receiving benefits from you all?
Sure. Well, for the rental assistance, we get referrals primarily from Fairfax County Coordinated Services Planning, CSP, and also Falls Church social workers. So they're working with their clients, and they see someone who needs help making rent or utilities. They will reach out to the appropriate local organization. FCS primarily serves 4 zip codes. So we usually get requests for residents in those 4. For food, we stick to those zip codes because that makes it easy to deliver. But for emergency financial assistance, we do go outside those zip codes. So we receive a referral from the social worker, and then we just directly write checks to the landlord, to the property manager, and cover what we can of their rental needs for that month. We have another grant that is a leftover from the emergency rental assistance program. And those we can use to cover multiple months of rent. But our main program is we usually help a household one time through like a difficult time. It's supposed to be a stopgap.
And just to be clear for our listeners, because they may know somebody who could use some rental assistance or even need some rental assistance themselves, you mentioned a referral from a social worker.
Mhm.
Is that from the county? Or where do those, what's the kind of like the channel that gets people to a social worker and then to
Sure.
your benefits?
So I think the first stop for anyone needing food or rental utility assistance would be to contact the county or city social workers. So for Fairfax County, that's the Coordinated Services Planning Department, and they have a number on their website that anyone can call and request help for. They have people who speak multiple languages, and they will kind of get people matched with a social worker, and then that social worker will help identify means of assistance for them. One thing that is important, I think, to put out there is that there can often be a concern or a fear of people who need assistance but are hesitant to reach out for help, especially to a government or a county, because they feel like they might have their immigration status might come into question, or they might be somehow endangering their current livelihoods. But I do want to note that those social workers from the county and the city are not allowed to ask anyone's an immigration status at all, and they don't. So I feel like there is sometimes a hurdle to overcome just communications wise for people who need help. It can feel scary to reach out, but that is something to note about county services. We do also help people who outside of that whole system. That is where we get the majority of our referrals. But we do sometimes get referrals from faith communities or pastors like yourself and say, we have a parishioner in need. Can you help out? And then we work on that on a case-by-case basis. But we don't have our operating method is not to have people just call us for help. It usually is through different channels. Because as Lois mentioned, we are a very small, very part-time staff. So we're most effective when we get referrals that have come through a kind of a different a vetting process already.
So you'd mentioned that you have a small staff and you do a lot of services. So what's the role of volunteers at the Falls Church Community Service Council? And are you looking for more?
Oh, absolutely. So volunteers have been critical since the beginning of FCS. When you talk about partnerships, our volunteers are our main partners. So Lois, as I mentioned, runs the food pantry. She's part-time. Linda is office administration, helps on the emergency assistance side as well. She's part-time. I'm part-time. Everything else is volunteers. So we rely on them to do that direct service. And we're really lucky that we have a really dedicated pool. Last year, we did over 560 food deliveries. Those were all volunteers, of course. And as I mentioned, the demand for food assistance just continues to grow. So while we have a pool of volunteers, many of them have been doing this for decades, and we're so grateful for them, they're getting stretched. So we always need more volunteers, especially food delivery volunteers. And we can use volunteers to help us stock the pantry. We're going to be moving the pantry from the small area it is now into a bigger one in Knox. We're going to need a group to help with that. We have a program that is really wonderful called Groceries Every Month, or GEM. And these are individuals and families that have been identified as needing food support every month. So we match them with a volunteer who gets to know them and then delivers on a regular basis to them.
Oh.
We have heard from social workers that they have families that need that support and would like us to take on a few more GEM clients. So we could use a volunteer or 2 or 3 who would like to have a regular recurring volunteer job to pack and deliver a week's worth of groceries to a family every month.
Yeah.
So there's many different ways to get involved, but we love volunteers, and especially the volunteers that come from our partner faith communities. It's great to bring everyone together and get the job done like we've been doing over the past 50 years.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of those are kind of low bar of entry. Like it's not, doesn't take a lot of extra knowledge or information. It's something that they can step into easily.
Right. And Lois provides training. And the way it works is if you say you want to be a food delivery volunteer, for instance, Lois will train you and show you the pantry. There's a list of things we pack. It's pretty straightforward. And then each week you get an email saying, are you available to deliver this week and which day? And then you'll get matched depending on your availability. If you're not available, that's fine. You just look at the next week. So it is flexible and it's pretty straightforward. Lois, do you want to add anything about how the food delivery volunteers get acclimated or takes?
I mean, that's pretty much what it is. They do have to be at least 18. You know, a teenager or even a child could do it with a parent, but
my daughter does it with me too.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
and then, so if there's listeners that are hearing this podcast, they're like, oh yeah, that's something I could do, or this is really interesting, I'd like to know more. Do you have a form online that potential volunteers would fill out, or do they just call your organization, or how does that work to bring on new volunteers?
We do. We have a volunteer interest form on our website. I would encourage people to say where they're from, where they heard about us from, because that helps us figure out, you know, how we connect with them and how it will best work. The volunteer opportunities are listed on the website, and you can contact them. You can contact me. It's very easy.
Great. Oh, that's awesome. And then in terms of donations, you talked a little bit about food donations. Are people able to just drop off food at the pantry? And like a side question, if people want to make contributions towards your rent support initiatives, is there a portal online that people could make donations directly to you all on?
For actual food donations, people can contact me through the website, and they do, and then I just arrange a time to meet them at the pantry. So,
and the website also has a list of our most needed items. So that if someone is interested, they can just go, we always need cooking oil, and then just shoot an email to Lois about when they can drop it off. And then for donations, we have a donation page on our website as well. That makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, that's really easy. Nice. Is there any, thinking of donations, something that you all really need right now? If people wanted to make a special gift or a larger gift to support what you all do?
That was food
specific pantry? Food. You mean for the pantry?
Or anything that you can see, and maybe this could be a transition to the next question about what you see as the challenges going forward over the next year. But is there something that you all really need or would love to have that you don't have to address what you see coming around the corner?
I think since our mission and our work is really straightforward, you know, we get money in and it goes right back out in the form of food or rent. When we run out of money, we have to stop helping people. So as I mentioned, the demand for help is going up and continues to go up. So we need funds to meet that demand, or we have to scale back who we serve. So we don't have any, big initiatives or big projects. We focus on these things that we do really well, and we're just limited by the amount of funding we have. So food funding is going to be big for us this year going forward, because I can just tell, Lois, you could probably tell already that it's going to be continuing to rise. And volunteers, I mean, that volunteer time is money. And if we get additional funds to feed more people, then we're going to need more volunteers to get those groceries out. So it's really hand in hand.
Noel, you mentioned that your food delivery volunteers are able to make those deliveries of the food and grocery bags that you pack at the pantry to the door. Can you say a little bit about what that process is like and what the volunteer actually does?
Sure, yes. So once the volunteer is matched with a client who needs a delivery that fits the volunteer's availability, they will come to the food pantry and they will call the client and talk to them a bit about what their needs are, their dietary needs, their cultural food preferences, and to make sure that the groceries that they pack are what people want to eat and what will meet the nutritional needs for their family. So it isn't just a food delivery service. It's a very personalized uh, food delivery and also a connection to the client. So we're not just dropping off a bag of groceries. It's a bag of groceries that our volunteers have carefully packed with the input of the client. And I think it shows a lot of care and it provides a personal connection along with the service.
Great. And so there's almost like an engagement, a potential even relationship that could be built over time if that seems to be like a regular route even for the volunteer.
Yes, especially for our groceries every month clients. We match them with a volunteer who delivers on a regular basis. And they get to know the client, they get to know the family, the situation. We had a situation recently where the client's family, they were facing an eviction and they hadn't contacted their social worker. So our volunteer gave me a heads up and I reached out to their social worker. So we build relationships, but we can also look out for people and, see if they need a little extra help, we can do what we can to connect them with it.
Great. Great. And then do you have any other success stories that you might want to share so our listeners can hear about how your services have a direct and powerful impact on your clients?
I mean, through the years, there are a lot of success stories. I mean, we have helped people just get over a rough spot and then seen later where they're succeeding on their own financially. So it's hard to remember the specific households at this point. And then they're just the ones that we support on an ongoing basis. We're seeing them keep their heads above water.
Yeah, that they wouldn't be able to do without our assistance.
Yeah.
And, our volunteers will come back and say things like, we showed up at the groceries and the family was so appreciative. They were so amazed at the quantity of the groceries. We get that response a lot because, as Lois mentioned before, we are really generous with our deliveries. And people are often, I think, shocked by the amount of food that they're getting from us. Our volunteers will tell us stories about people bursting into tears when they see them, about being invited in to spend time with the family. So, while I mentioned a lot about the numbers and the demand increasing, behind all those numbers are real people. And our volunteers are the people who get to make those connections. And it's really special, I think. And it's a really rewarding volunteer opportunity.
Yeah, I had an experience too, because I will schedule like a pickup. I'll order groceries online and go pick them up. And this young man who worked for the grocery store told me that he knew that his family had received food from us because he saw what I was buying for the food pantry. So, this is someone who has a full-time job and works really hard. And he's telling me that his family was food insecure,
So other than food insecurity specifically, do you see any other challenges in the near future or items or elements of the next year that you hope you'll have the resources or the need for more resources as you see going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all going to have to watch what happens in terms of social services and funding for social services as the next few years come along. We will hope there's not a further reduction in SNAP benefits or any of the other benefits that are helping people in need. But I think we will, just like our partners, keep chugging along and trying to meet the needs for really basic food, housing, medical, utilities. And we just want to be more known in our community so that more people can know where to reach out, more people can volunteer. I feel like in the next few years, we're really going to be wanting to build more community connections and weave a much stronger safety net for the more vulnerable in our community. And that's what we'll be working towards.
Nice. Excellent. And is there any goals or hopes you have for the new year and what you're trying to accomplish?
I think for the new year, we have been talking about increasing the outreach in the community. Like I mentioned, we've been around for 50 some years, but we're small and we're quiet. And I think that there's a lot of potential to be more well known in the community, not for being well known's sake, but because we do have to expand our reach if we're going to be able to serve more people. So we've been looking at more community outreach events, maybe being at some farmers markets, really just getting out there and getting to know people better and making those connections. Also with maybe local schools, that type of stuff. So I think like connection and community and communications in general is going to be big for us in the coming year.
That's great.
And then also we're, moving and not renovating, sprucing up our food pantry. So that's going to be a physical effort.
Yeah. Well. That's great. Yeah. And that's kind of the idea behind this podcast as well, is to just get names of organizations like you all, the Falls Church Community Service Council, and what you're doing out to the general public so that more people are aware of not only the need, but the ways that people can help support the organizations that are meeting those needs. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. Is there other elements or topics that we didn't touch upon that you think are important for our listeners to know?
One thing I did want to mention, another way to help is that our board is looking to fill a few spots. So if there is a community member, maybe someone from Holy Trinity who wants to serve on the FCS board, it would be wonderful. It's great to have board members from our partner communities because they know what's going on in their community. It's very good to build connections and increase communication. And it's really, it's a low lift, I think, and it's a great opportunity to be able to join an established organization that's really good at what we do, but it also has potential to, grow and focus in new little areas. So if people have interest in events or fundraising or volunteer management or accounting, we're open to any help and would love a new board member. So you can reach out to me directly about that.
Fantastic. Great. Well, Noel, Lois, you do so much for our very local community, and the Falls Church Community Service Council does that last little bit of getting food to the door of our neighbors. And we are so grateful for you. I'm grateful for you all sharing your valuable time with us. Thank you so much. And I do encourage our listeners to reach out to you if they feel like they're feeling the urge to be a contributing member to helping combat some of the food insecurity in our neighborhood and providing some rental assistance that's deeply needed at this time. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having us. It's been really nice chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you all.